Good morning. Today we are going to talk about photography and not about gear. Um, I've just arrived at the Granary Estates to do an engagement shoot Be- with Becky, and I don't even know her to be husband's name. Um, they've they booked me for their wedding in about 2 months' time, and it's all sorted. Uh, the package they brought includes the engagement shoot, so that's what we're here to do today, as well as, of course, get all the details of their wedding. So what I'm going to do is, it is their engagement shoot, so I'm not going to intrude with a video during the shoot. But what we'll do is, when I've done the shots, when I get back home, we'll go into Lightroom, we'll have a look at some of the shots. I'll have many of the shots sort of fresh in my mind, so I'll talk about why I did them, how I did them, where the light was, etc., etc. Hopefully, you may find some of it useful. Gear wise, not going to talk too much about that, and there's not much to talk about. It's my Z8 with the 50mm 1.8 S lens on, and that's it. That's all I bring along to an engagement shoot. Keep it really simple. Let's go and meet the couple. Okay, so here we are with Matt and Becky. And the first thing I'm going to do is very quickly run through all of the shots, just to give you an idea of what the place was like, what shots I got, and so on. I spent about 20 minutes, I guess, getting these shots. We'd previously spent about 20 minutes talking about their wedding, getting the details, and then we had a walk around what is going to be their wedding venue. So, what am I looking for, first of all, when I'm looking for some places to do shots? For me, I like layers. I like I like to have a foreground, as we've got here. I like to have the subject, and then I like to have some background. I like these days. I've changed over the last 2 or 3 years, probably. I like to have a very light background if I can. Um, I used to be a more sort of dark, moody sort of guy. Now I'm a light, airy, romantic, soft. I just think it works better for weddings than a dark and moody. I'm not saying I don't still do those, but most of the time, certainly outdoors, I'll be looking for the light and airy sort of look if I can. So we started off. I saw this gate. I like gates, especially when they're old and rickety like this one was. We had some background, obviously over in the field here. I had some foreground, and the way I, in quotes, pose my couples is not to pose them. Um, None of the people I ever photograph, well, none of the people I ever photograph at weddings and engagement shoots are professional models. You can't expect them to know what to do, how to make a photograph look good. Um, and you've got two choices. You either spend an age on every single photo, getting them to have exactly the right look, to be looking in the right place, to have their head in the right place, to move them 3 inches to the left to get the light, and it just all becomes way too difficult. They won't enjoy the experience. I want an engagement couple to enjoy the experience, to have confidence that when it comes to their wedding, they're going to like having me around as their photographer. So I'm looking for background first, and as I say, looking for something light, um, looking for layers as well. So this hasn't got any foreground, and whilst that might be a decent photo, I would be more inclined. I don't know if I've got one. I'd be more inclined to like a photo like this, where I've got this branch here, and I think a bit later on I've got some stuff that's even more. No, I haven't. I'm sorry. Even more sort of in the foreground. So I'm looking for foreground. Here we go. So foreground, subject, background is my ideal way of shooting. And I like the look of this of photos being documentary, of not being staged or posed, or they would just happen to be walking around the garden and they stop and they have a chat, and they just get a little bit romantic, and I try and make it look as real as possible. Some shots of the actual venue there. Sorry, there was a lake, and we simply walked all around this lake and got different shots as we walked around it. The grounds of this wedding venue aren't huge, but the lake was the main attraction. So these are the sort of shots I got. What did I get? 114 shots. I would look to edit about 30 of these to give to the couple, and we'll go on any moment. Oh, by the way, there was this lovely old rickety, probably 100-year-old horse-drawn little cart thing, which just worked. I just loved it, and it was a prop for Matt to lean against, and give us another staging rather than a pose for some more photos. Then we were walking back. We're getting towards the end of the shoot now. Found some grass just outside the garden, actually, in the field. Unfortunately, the only colours available was white flowers. I would have liked some poppies or some blue flowers or something just to give it a bit more interest, but just wasn't there, so I couldn't do it. And then on the way back to the car, I actually found another place we could get some shots with the lake in the background. So we did a few more on the way back to the car. So that was the engagement shoot from start to finish. What I'll now do is pick one or two photos and we'll just go through the way that I edit them. And this isn't an extensive Lightroom course, but rather just what I do for every wedding. Every wedding photo would be edited like this. Let's take this one. For no particular reason, but it's not a. It looks natural. I like it. I like the background. We've got some different. We've got green and light, and I just like it. Actually, let me just dive forward to explain something about the way I'm going to edit these photos. Normally, quite often, I would defocus the background. We'll go into this in a bit more. Defocus it, desaturate it just to make it a little less outstanding, and really make it into a background rather than an essential part of the photo, if you like. However, Matt had these wonderful red shorts on. Becky had sort of red and green and in her dress, and I thought that the green. By the way, there was no very few flowers or anything. The colour choice was green. Green and red, obviously, if you know about the colour circle, are complementary and just work together really well. And his bright red shorts, I thought, needed bright green to go with them to give me a nice balance. If I did play around, but if I desaturate the green to sort of this sort of look, not that this is desaturated, this is straight out of camera, but if I don't accentuate the green, then I don't get the best, in my view, out of this shot. So that's what I'm looking for. So in fact, I think actually sorry, I'm changing my mind, it would be best if we edited this one first, because it was this shot, I think, that got me to think about the colours and the red and the green and what the whole look should be. And what I do is I'll edit one photo, come up with a look, and then I will save that as a preset, and that will then get applied to all of the photos that are taken in the same light and location. So if this was a wedding, I would come up for a preset for this part of the wedding. They then would go indoors, and we get some shots indoors maybe. I would come up with a different preset for indoors, maybe a different preset for the evening, a different preset for prep. So I'll end up with 4 or 5 different presets, so I can then just go through, select the photos I actually want to include in their wedding album, or in this case in their engagement shoot, and just simply apply that preset, move on. It makes life very quick, relatively. I can edit a whole wedding of 1200 shots in probably 4 or 5 hours, which, going back, if I went back 4 or 5 years, it would probably take me at least twice that amount of time. So the thing I would do is, first of all, get the overall look roughly in the right ballpark, and I always lift the shadows and drop the highlights. As I say, I want a bit more clarity and texture. Whoops. I would want to increase the saturation slightly to get the green to really pop, and even that isn't enough. Let's just give it a bit more. I think even more vibrance. There we go. So something like that is roughly what I want the shot to look like. Now I want to get down to some details. Actually, I want some less. Let's make the blacks stand out a bit more. I'll now use, because we've got the latest version of Lightroom, I would select the subject and separate them from the background. That way I can do some final editing, changing my subject's look and changing the background's look completely separately. So we go to the masking tool here, and I select subject. Now you can select subject, or you can select, where's it gone? People. I'm not doing anything, but it's already detecting people. I don't really want to detect people. And the reason is it takes twice as long to detect people as it does to detect subject. Detecting subject picks out things that are in focus rather than actual people, and it's just a heck of a lot quicker, and in most cases comes up with possibly a better selection than selecting people. Just my experience at weddings where you've got a whole bunch of people, it will take forever trying to find all these people. Selecting subject simply selects those people that are in focus, because I don't always want all of the people as the focus of this particular photograph. So here it's now picked out Becky and Matt. I now just right click and invert, duplicate. So we'll now have a mask that has got the subject, the background. If I go to Mark and Becky, it's by default, because I use it all the time, has selected a preset that I call Flash Circle. So this gives them, just them, not the background, the look of having of me using off-camera flash. So it's made them a bit brighter, it's lifted the shadows a bit, and so on. I'm just going to make them a little bit more contrasted, just make the blacks stand out a bit more, and I think just lift the shadows a bit, and I'm now happy with the way that they look. The background, if we go to the background, you can see that hasn't got anything applied to it at all. So I will simply again increase the saturation of the background a bit more. This time I'll lift the blacks a bit just to get the look I want, just to reduce the texture and the clarity and the sharpness just a tad, to make it a bit more differentiated from the subject. I think that is fine. I think I now just apply a vignette. Too much. So let's go to vignette. Let's reduce that to about there, and I'm now happy with that. That will be my preset that I would now apply to all of the shots that I want, and I've already done it. I've already saved it as Becky Engagement, so we simply go to add a new preset, give it a name, save everything, and you've now got a preset. So my job now is simply to go through and select from the library those shots I'm going to apply that preset to. So let's just pretend we've done all that. So we're now going to apply the preset to this shot here, which is straight out of camera. We simply apply it Becky Engagement. And by the way, if what I would actually do is I would, once I've selected all of the shots I want to include in the gallery, I hit 6 on the keyboard, which gives them a red label. I would then simply go here, show all the photos with a red label. I would add the preset to the first one, highlight all the rest, do sync. Oh, let's do it. So I would Control A, select all of them, sync, and then just synchronize, and it will do the it will apply all the presets a lot quicker than going through each and every photo individually. So back to here, that's applied the preset. Do I want to do anything? So what this gives you the ability to do is to select just the subject, and if you think he's got a bit too much highlight on him, we can reduce that. We can reduce his exposure just a tad, and that's fine. I'm happy with that. And that, once you've applied that preset to all of the photos, you can just simply go through each one very quickly, maybe correct the exposure, and just get the thing to look exactly as you want it very, very much quicker. She wanted a shot of her ring here. So these aren't all the shots, I've only got 14, so I've got another 14 or so to go. But that's what I would give the couple for their engagement shoot. Can I just, I said I wasn't going to talk about gear, but as you can see, all the shots with the Z8 with a 50mm lens on, which I mentioned right at the beginning. This was my, I've done a boudoir shoot with the Z8, but that didn't really test the Z8 in any way at all. This was much more like a wedding, which is what I want the Z8 for. And I have to say, it's going to make my life so easy. I could not believe how good the AF is. On every single one of these shots, I'm using wide area, so I'm using the whole screen, auto area with face and eye detect turned on. And even, let me take this shot here. This shot, I think it was about here. They'd actually started walking back from where the grass started back there. It instantly came up with, I'm not sure whose face, but one or other of their faces. And by the time they got here, it was now switched to eye autofocus. So it had this tiny dot on, I can't remember again whether it was his eye or her eye. If you go to 100% zoom, I think it was probably hers, just looking, because she does look slightly more in focus than Matt does. And even though she's barely got eyes open here because it was so bright and sunny, it still picked up her eye from that distance away, and just tracked her. I don't need, for weddings where people are just walking, and I don't need 3D tracking. It just moves. It just stuck on her eye as she walked across. It just moved across as she moved across. I got quite a few shots at this point, and as I say, it was just, I just didn't have to do anything. I just held the back button focus down and took a shot when I felt like it. It was just so easy, absolutely brilliant. So that was my first editing video, and I'll be doing some more. Got a wedding, got a boudoir shoot tomorrow. Wedding on Friday and Saturday this coming weekend, so probably next week I'll do another one and we'll look at a wedding and we'll just run through that and see if that's helpful and useful to you. Hope you've enjoyed this and found it useful, and thank you for watching.